Well, good morning. This is Barry Odell with the Church of Christ at Mammoth Spring Facebook page. It's Wednesday morning, March 22nd, 2023. Hope everybody's doing okay today. I need to go ahead and tell you so I don't forget. We will not have any live streams next week. I'll be at the Memphis School of Preaching lectureship starting on, I'm going to go there Monday. I speak on Wednesday morning, but that starts on Sunday, but runs through Thursday. So we won't have any live streams next week. So I want to finish the book of 1 Kings today with Ahab and then pick up in a week and a half from now. Anyway, that's where we are. We're looking at Ahab, the seventh king of northern Israel after the kingdom has split. And I want to, let's do this. Let's do this first. Connie, good morning. Anna, Lyle, Janie, Norma, Brian, Sheila. Good to see all of you guys on the stream. Others are watching as well. Cross-post onto the nearchurches.com Facebook page. We always have some viewers over there. Good to have all of you here. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, add them to the comment section, and I will acknowledge them when I see them. And when we upload this to YouTube, of course, it's not live, but it's available there on our channel. And the comment section is always open on our YouTube channel. So if you end up watching it there, you can ask questions or make comments, and I'll acknowledge them when I see them. All right, so we are looking at Ahab, the seventh king of Israel. We've talked about this. He's mentioned, his life is covered from essentially 1 Kings 16 to 1 Kings 22, and then he's mentioned throughout the book of 2 Kings. There is a parallel account in 2 Chronicles chapters 18 through 22. Chronicles covers the kings of Judah, and so Ahab reigned during the reign of King Jehoshaphat of Judah. So there is some more information over there, but it's primarily focused on Jehoshaphat and not necessarily just Ahab. So we talked about this yesterday. Obviously, the wickedness of Ahab and its, I guess one way I would say it is its amplification. Okay, Ahab's wicked enough, but then it's amplified by the fact that he married Jezebel. There's Gail. And so I want us to think about that for just a minute. So let me do this real quick. Get back here to pull up the biblical text for you so you can see it. All right. So I am in 1 Kings chapter 20 here. And but back in 1 Kings chapter 16, we read about him, the beginning of his reign. You get down to the end of 1 Kings chapter 16, and you'll recall, we looked at this yesterday, verse 31. It came to pass as though it had been a trivial thing for him to walk in the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, that he took his wife Jezebel, the daughter of Ethbaal, king of the Sidonians, and he went and served Baal and worshipped him. And there are other things that are said. So as you read this account, again, 1 Kings chapters 16 through 22. Chapters 17 and 18 are primarily about Elijah and his work and some of the miracles that he performed. Chapter 19 is about once Elijah confronted the 450 prophets of Baal and the 400 prophets of Asherah. 1 Kings 19 records how Jezebel's coming after him, and he goes off in his depression, but then he's called back to work by God. And it's really not until you get back to 1 Kings chapter 20 that the focus is still on, or the focus is brought back around to Ahab. So it's good to know that. Here's what I want you to think about, though. I mentioned this yesterday in regard to him, Ahab, marrying Jezebel. When you get over to 1 Kings chapter 21, I have this highlighted in my Bible because I think this is significant. We hear a couple of things, or we've heard a couple of things over the years. The most important decision you'll ever make in your life is the decision to follow the Lord. The decision to become a Christian, and the second most important decision is deciding who you're going to marry. And I can't really argue with either one of those points. The most important thing that a person can do is follow God, and there's no doubt about it that very closely tied to that is who you're going to spend the rest of your life with. That there are great impacts on on you as an individual, on your faith, on who in regard to who you marry. There's no question about that. So over here in 1 Kings chapter 21, look at this verse here. 1 Kings 21:25. But there was no one like Ahab who sold himself to do wickedness in the sight of the Lord. Okay, so that's a statement about him, but it continues. Because Jezebel his wife stirred him up, and he behaved very abominably in following idols, according to all that the Amorites had done, whom the Lord had cast out before the children of Israel. One passage that I think of, and I'll just pull this up here real quick. This is a New Testament passage. In regard to the spousal relationship, 1 Peter chapter 3. 1 Peter chapter 3 and the first 6 verses here are addressed to Christian women who have married non-believing husbands, and how those women are to conduct themselves based on that fact. All right, 1 Peter chapter 3, for instance, chaste conduct accompanied by fear. The hidden person of the heart, 1 Peter chapter 3 and verse 4. Incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit which is very precious in the sight of God. It's like I said yesterday, we think of names. All right, Jezebel. You never hear a woman named Jezebel. There's a reason for that, okay? It's not a good connection there. So 1 Peter 3 talks about that, but then there's something else that comes out in the text when Peter turns his attention to the husbands. He says, husbands likewise dwell with them according to understanding. The King James says, dwell with them according to knowledge, with understanding, giving honor to the wife as to the weaker vessel. And notice this next statement. And as being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. And I think you can look at that a couple of ways, okay? Being heirs together of the grace of life. Well, I would say that obviously includes one's physical existence. Okay, your mate, your spouse, and specifically here, a man's wife, can be a great benefit to him, a great help to him, but then, of course, spiritually as well. And that's the connection made throughout this particular text here, 1 Peter 3, again, verses 1 through 7. Also, Ephesians chapter 5, of course, verses 22 through 33, where the relationship of the husband and wife is compared to the relationship of Christ and his church. As being heirs together of the grace of life, that your prayers may not be hindered. It's not just about this physical life and this existence here on this earth, but even your prayers, if your relationship with your spouse is not right, your prayers can be hindered. That word hindered in the Greek means cut out. It's like a dropped call. This is the positive side of it, let's say. Husband's doing what he's supposed to do. Wife is doing what she's supposed to do. You're heirs together of the grace of life, the favor of life, the blessings of life. Your spouse, from God's perspective, from a Christian's perspective, your spouse is to be and can and should be a blessing, a compliment to you, a help, all of those things that we think about. But when we're studying the life of Ahab and the lives of Ahab and Jezebel, it's the exact opposite. You have a spouse here. Okay, Ahab is evil. There's no question about that. But his wife stirred him up in that wickedness. She expedited his evil. And so there's this trend. I've seen this trend lately. I don't know if it's on TikTok or whatever it is, but these little short videos of the screen will say something along the lines of, see if your mate can match your energy. And a husband or a wife they'll be sitting there, let's say side by side on the couch or something, and the wife will act like something is on her or approaching them, and she freaks out. It's a joke, but then the husband will match that energy. He doesn't know what's going on. He's just reacting based on how she's reacting at he doesn't know what. It's kind of funny to see those things, but there's a truth to that, how a husband and or a wife can really affect the mentality and even the behavior, how their mentality's manifested of their mate. And people can allow others to, obviously, Ahab and Jezebel, negatively affect them They can stir them up to wickedness. Or you can be heirs together of the grace of life. So I think there's a lot that could be taken from the lives of and the marriage of Ahab and Jezebel. A wicked person marrying another wicked person, and they kind of provoke each other along. This is all said. So that's 1 Kings 21:25. This is all said within the context of the first part of 1 Kings chapter 21, and I mentioned this briefly yesterday, when Ahab wanted this vineyard that belonged to somebody else. But as the text said here, this vineyard of Naboth that he wants, he says, it's near, it's right next to my house. I'll pay you for it. And listen, I'll give you more money than it's actually worth. Naboth turns it down. I'm not going to give you the inheritance of my fathers. And of course, that's according to the law of Moses. We looked at that yesterday, Leviticus 25, Numbers chapter 36. But I'm laying this out again just to show you the character both of Ahab and Jezebel here. Look at his reaction. Okay, this is a king. This is the king of a nation. And he's not allowed a piece of property. So Ahab went into his house sullen and displeased because of the word which Naboth, the Jezreelite, had spoken to him. For he had said, I will not give you the inheritance of my fathers. And he lay down on his bed and turned away his face and would eat no food. So I did a little digging on that word sullen here in 1 Kings 21:4. And the word, one of the renderings of that term in the Hebrew is resentful. He didn't get what he wanted, and so he became a resentful and unhappy person. Now here's an interesting thing to think about too. In 1 Kings chapter 20, the same thing is said. In 1 Kings chapter 20, you have a back and forth between the Syrian army and the Israelite army. The Syrians, as you open 1 Kings chapter 20, they've besieged Samaria, and from everything I can tell, they're defeating the Israelites in Samaria. And the king of Syria sends a message to Ahab and says, listen, your gold and silver are mine, your wives and children are mine. Well, that doesn't set well with the king of Israel, obviously. So there's a back and forth throughout 1 Kings chapter 20 between the Syrians and their king Ben-Hadad and Israel and their king Ahab. As it all winds out, as it all plays out, and you see this here, Israel makes a treaty with Syria, and Ahab lets Ben-Hadad go. Okay? A prophet then comes to Ahab and says, listen, the Syrians were given into your hands. The Lord allowed you to defeat them. They're an enemy of the Lord and his people, and you let him go. And so Ahab is essentially told, things are not going to go well for you. Okay? He's condemned here. You read the last part, 1 Kings 20, beginning in verse 35. Notice this. Thus says the Lord, this is the prophet speaking to Ahab. Because you have let slip out of your hand a man whom I appointed to utter destruction, and that's talking about Ben-Hadad, king of the Syrians. Therefore your life shall go for his life, and your people for his people. Notice the king's response here. He went to his house sullen and displeased. So you have that in the context of I guess you'd say like a military interaction. He should not have made the treaty with Ben-Hadad. I mean, that goes all the way back to the days of Moses. You don't make treaties with these people. You destroy them. But because and this is so interesting too with Ahab, you see this throughout his life in a variety of ways. With Elijah, with Naboth in chapter 21, Ahab refuses to do what God expects kings to do, and God's the bad guy. He's unhappy. He's displeased because things didn't go the way he felt they should go. But the reason is he didn't do what God told him to do. And so here, 1 Kings 20:43, he went to his house resentful and displeased. You turn to 1 Kings chapter 21. He doesn't get what he wants, and he goes to his house sullen and displeased. Because he felt he should have had it. What is he, entitled? I don't know. Here's what we know. He's wicked, and he becomes resentful when he doesn't get what he wants or when things don't go his way, like with the treaty there in 1 Kings chapter 20. So Jezebel, his wife, came to him. Why are you so resentful that you won't even eat food? This is a grown man. And again, this is kind of hard to fathom. This is a grown man. He's the king of a nation, and he didn't get a small piece of property next to his house, and so he won't even eat. It shows you how immature adults can be, and how resentment can affect not just you, but those around you. So Jezebel, again, with her character, she comes up with this plan so that Ahab can get Naboth's vineyard. They're going to have a feast for Naboth, but she's hired 2 guys to come in and lie about him. The text says here, scoundrels. Okay, you can't get much worse than this kind of person. They're willing to lie. And we want you to say that Naboth has blasphemed God and the king. Take him out and kill him. And that's exactly what they do, as you read 1 Kings chapter 21, beginning in verse 11. They seat They seat Naboth with high honor among the people. These scoundrels come in. They witness against him. They lie against him. He's blasphemed God and the king, so they take him out and stone him. And Jezebel's like, here you go. 1 Kings 21:15, arise and take possession of the vineyard of Naboth, the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money. For Naboth is not alive, but dead. So Ahab went to his house resentful and unhappy. Now he gets what he wants, and he went up and he took possession of the vineyard. Now he's happy. He gets what he wants. Yeah, Sheila says he's a king with a 3-year-old mentality. You got that right. 3-year-olds, imagine, we've all seen a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old throw a temper tantrum. Imagine if a 3-year-old had the strength of a full-grown man while they were throwing that temper tantrum. That could be pretty disastrous. Anyway, he's obviously condemned by the Lord. 1 Kings chapter 21 covers that. And, have you murdered and also taken possession? That's exactly what he's done. You've sold yourself to do evil, the Lord says, in the sight of the Lord. Behold, I will bring calamity on you. I will take away your posterity and will cut off from every male in Israel, both bond and free. Now that comes to pass a little bit later in the book. The text continues with this condemnation. And then that's when we're told there's nobody like Ahab who sold himself to do evil in the sight of the Lord, because Jezebel, his wife, stirred him up. Here's an interesting twist to the story. As you finish reading 1 Kings chapter 21, when Ahab heard these words, he tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his body, and fasted and lay in sackcloth and went about mourning. And God sees that, which, a couple things there. Well, Ahab repented. He's in mourning. But think of the long-suffering of God here. I mean, God could have just struck him dead. But he says to Elijah, see, Ahab has humbled himself before me. Because he has humbled himself before me, I will not bring the calamity in his days. In the days of his son, I will bring the calamity on his house. And that's what I was saying. That's recorded a little bit later in the book, a little bit later in 2 Kings, but 2 Kings chapters 9 and 10. But you just see the wickedness of Ahab. Well, 1 Kings chapter 22, as we end the book here, I want to wrap this up and finish the book today. 3 years, no war between Syria and Israel. This is what I told you. 2 Chronicles 18 through 22 parallels this particular account. But in that 3rd year, Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, went to visit the king of Israel. And as you're reading this chapter, should we go up and fight for this particular region, Ramoth Gilead? And this is, well, you notice here, 1 Kings 22:3. The king of Israel said to his servants, "Do you know that Ramoth in Gilead is ours, but we hesitate to take it out of the hand of the king of Syria?" So he's essentially planning to go and retake this land that Syria has conquered. And so he wants Jehoshaphat, the king of Judah, to go with him. Keep that in mind as you read through this chapter. Ahab's already made up his mind. He's ready to go fight, and he wants Jehoshaphat to go with him. And so Jehoshaphat says this, let's see if God is okay with this. Let's inquire of the Lord. And so the king of Israel, Ahab, gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said to them, "Shall I go against Ramoth Gilead to fight, or shall I refrain?" Now these are his prophets. And as you read through 1 Kings chapter 22, you're going to see that they're lying prophets who have been, who are essentially willing to tell Ahab anything he wants to hear. So there's no shortage of false prophets. I mean, Elijah's already defeated 850 of them. Well, now you've got several hundred more. Well, of course, these are the king's prophets. What do you think they're going to say to him? Yeah, go and be victorious. But notice what Jehoshaphat says here. He was what's considered one of the good kings of Judah. Is there not still a prophet of the Lord here, that we may inquire of him? Notice the emphasis. Verse 6, the king gathered his prophets. Verse 7, the king of Judah says, "Is there not a prophet of the Lord here?" So the text makes that delineation between Ahab's prophets and the Lord's prophet, Micaiah. And notice Ahab's response to this. Yeah, there's one, Micaiah. We can inquire of the Lord of him, but I hate him, because he does not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. Well, he's a prophet of the Lord, and he's going to, and the text even lays this out as you read down through here. Listen, I'm just going to tell you what the Lord tells me to say. Well, it's right here. Look down at 1 Kings chapter 22 and verse 14. Micaiah says, "As the Lord lives, whatever the Lord says to me, that's what I'm going to say." Well, he prophesies ultimately that Israel's going to be scattered in the mountains as sheep that have no shepherd. "These have no master, let each return to his house in peace." Well, that's a prophecy. Ahab, you're going to die in battle. And so he's like to Jehoshaphat, "I told you, he never tells me anything. He doesn't tell me what I want to hear." That's the issue with Ahab and Micaiah. It's not that he's concerning evil, prophesying evil concerning Ahab. It's that Micaiah doesn't tell Ahab what he wants to hear. So you think back to 1 Kings chapter 20. That prophet prophesied against Ahab, and he went down to his house resentful and displeased. Naboth wouldn't give him his vineyard, so he went to his house resentful and displeased and wouldn't even eat. And now he hates Micaiah because Micaiah tells him what God has revealed to him, and he doesn't like that. That's the character of Ahab. That's the character of wickedness. God's word is never enough. It's not good enough. It doesn't give me what I want. It doesn't allow me to do what I want to do, and so I hate it. And there are folks like that in the world. Now there's an interesting section here. As you read 1 Kings chapter 22, and you begin reading in verse 19, you're given this scene of Micaiah said, "I saw the Lord sitting on a throne. There were hosts at his right hand and his left. And the Lord said, who will persuade Ahab to go up that he may fall at Ramoth Gilead? So one spoke in this manner and another spoke in that. Then a spirit came forward and stood before the Lord and said, I will persuade him." This is similar to that evil spirit that came upon Saul when he became so jealous of David. This is similar to what we read in Romans chapter 1 when people refused to retain God in their knowledge, he gave them up to their own vile affections. It's similar to 2 Thessalonians 2, who those who did not receive the love of the truth would believe a lie, and God would send them strong delusion. God allowed Ahab to be convinced by his false prophets to go out and fight. There was a lying spirit within them, and Ahab wanted to believe the lying spirit rather than what God actually said. So remember 1 Kings 22:3. Ahab had already made up his mind to go out and fight against Syria before he inquired of his prophets or Micaiah the prophet of the Lord. And this is just 1 Kings 22:19 beginning is just laying out the case that essentially God's going to let him do what he wants to do. Now it's going to, of course, bring about God's end, his desire, but you have this 1 Kings 22:23, the Lord put a lying spirit in the mouth of these prophets of yours, and the Lord has declared disaster against you. Ahab's mind was already made up before he, I guess you'd say, sought permission. So where's the chapter end? Well, the chapter ends, Ahab goes out to battle, and he dies in battle. And, well, that's what was prophesied. He didn't want to hear it, but that's what was prophesied would happen. And that brings the reign of Ahab to an end, 22 years of evil. And that's the end of 1 Kings. So, like I said, we're not going to have a live stream next week. We'll pick up a week and a half from now. Monday, I don't even know what the date would be, whatever that Monday would be. And we'll pick up in the book of 2 Kings with Ahaziah, the son of Ahab, becoming king over Israel and Samaria in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat, king of Judah, and he reigned 2 years over Israel. So that'll be the 8th king of northern Israel. Brian says that seems like a case. A lot of times in the church, not telling individuals what they want to hear, truth must be upheld, yeah. You know, I think of what Paul said in Acts chapter 20 to the Ephesian elders. He said, I am innocent from the blood of all men, because I have not failed to declare unto you all the counsel of God. And some people don't like it. Well, you still got to declare it. All right, guys, thanks for watching today. I appreciate it. Good to see all of you, and I hope you have a good rest of your week. We'll be live here at Mammoth tonight at 7 p.m. Central. If you're homesick or you have a place where you don't have Wednesday night services, we'll be in Psalm 74 through 77 tonight. Have a good day, and I guess I'll see you when I see you.